Hey basketball guys, we have news. Let's go to more news from the Golden State Warriors, but before that, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Some Warriors players have improved their production since Jimmy Butler arrived. Moody has had some great games, but he is not yet a game winner or star player. Moody has a lot of potential for growth, but the Warriors are currently willing to trade him for a big center. Rumors: Moody to be traded to the Toronto Raptors. When Moody signed his 3-year, $37.5 million extension with the Golden State Warriors prior to this season, the fourth-year wing essentially took himself off the trade table because of the poison pill contract. That will change in the summer when Moody officially begins that contract. Given the 22-year-old's emergence and stature as a starting caliber player, he's likely to hold significant value as a player whose contract appears massive based on recent form. A hypothetical trade sees the Warriors send Moody to the Raptors. Golden State could use that increased value to actually consider trading Moody, with the idea that they may get a bigger return than at any other point in his career to date. Greg Swartz of Bleacher Report has recently considered what the Warriors may be able to get, suggesting they could send Moody and Buddy Hield to the Toronto Raptors, without draft compensation, in exchange for starting center Jakob Poeltl. Swartz believes that Poeltl could be the perfect dirty work player for Golden State given his strong finishing, rebounding, and ability to be a defensive presence in the paint. With a core of Stephen Curry, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga, restricted free agent, and Brandon Podziemski in place, the Warriors could use some more size in the middle, Swartz wrote. However, there's a couple of issues with this. Firstly, Poeltl would only add to what is currently a loaded Warrior big man rotation. Golden State have unearthed impressive rookie Quinton Post, still possess reliable veteran Kevin Looney, and are likely to persist with Tracy Jackson-Davis despite his recent axing from the rotation. Why would the Warriors relinquish Moody and Hield when they could probably just bring Looney back for a lower number in free agency? Sure, Poeltl is a better player, but the comparative cost isn't worth it when you also consider the Austrian is still owed $39 million over the next 2 seasons. Golden State also lack perimeter shooting as it is, so they shouldn't consider sending out 2 of their best for a player who is solely restricted to the paint. It would put significant pressure on Mike Dunleavy Jr. and the front office to find shooting in free agency, or execute another trade elsewhere on the roster. Lastly and perhaps most importantly, in today's modern NBA with the punitive first and second tax aprons, why would the Warriors give up a player who appears to be on such a great value contract? If the franchise does actually consider trading Moody this offseason, it would want to be as part of a package for a star-level player, or at the very least be for a type of player they desperately need. Jimmy Butler nightmare the Warriors should already be planning to avoid. Things don't tend to go well post-Butler. Jimmy Butler has completely revamped the Golden State Warriors over the past 6 weeks, turning the franchise on its head from a .500 team to one that's now generating championship discussion. The 6X All-Star has had a monumental impact, with that signified on Tuesday night as he led a Stephen Curry-less Warriors to a big 104-93 victory over the Milwaukee Bucks. Many, including this writer, were skeptical of Butler's fit with Golden State, but history suggests we shouldn't be surprised by just how well this has gone so far. The Warriors should already be planning life after Stephen Curry and Jimmy Butler. Butler not only has a proven track record of making teams better, but his former teams also generally see a major skid following his departure. It's something The Ringer's Chris Vernon referred to in a recent episode of the Mismatch podcast. I don't know what more you can do to prove how much you matter than when you come, the team becomes good, and when you leave, the team becomes terrible, Vernon said. It's happened his whole career. It's crazy, and it's happening again, and the Heat have gone to absolute hell, and the Warriors are 14-2, now 15-2, with him. The Chicago Bulls were already in a good spot prior to drafting Butler with the 30th overall pick in the 2011, but they immediately fell from 8th in the Eastern Conference to 13th in the season after he was traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves won 31 games in the year before Butler's arrival, yet that spiked to 47 in his lone full season with the franchise. Minnesota then spent years rebuilding following Butler's tumultuous ending, winning 36, 19 and 23 games in the next 3 seasons. The Philadelphia 76ers were already on the up when Butler arrived, only for their winning percentage to fall following his departure. After pushing the Toronto Raptors to a legendary 7-game second-round series with Butler, the 76ers were rolled in a first-round sweep by the Boston Celtics the following year. After finishing 10th in the 2018-19 season, Butler sensationally lifted the Miami Heat to the 2020 NBA Finals in his first season. It was the first of 2 extraordinary trips to the finals during his time in South Beach, but the Heat are now in a world of hurt after last month's trade. Following Cade Cunningham's game-winning 3 on Wednesday night, Miami is now 4-16 since the trade and have fallen to 10th in the East. So not only does Golden State need to enjoy the fruits of what Butler is providing them right now, but they need to ensure they avoid the nightmare that teams tend to endure when he leaves. Fortunately, the Warriors would already be considering this timeline, with Butler's end date likely to be at a similar time as fellow veterans in Curry and Draymond Green. Steve Kerr must make harsh but necessary rotation call on much-loved Warriors pair. An 11-man rotation isn't sustainable. Injury fortune is seemingly on the Golden State Warriors' side entering the final 13 games of the regular season, with a near-clean injury report for Thursday's home game against the Toronto Raptors at Chase Center. With Stephen Curry set to return after missing Tuesday's win over the Milwaukee Bucks, informed guard Gary Payton II is the sole Warrior under an injury cloud as he is questionable for Thursday's game with knee soreness. The time for harsh but necessary rotation calls has come for the Warriors. If Payton is declared fit and available to face the Raptors, it will be the first time Steve Kerr has had a full rotation to pick from since the blockbuster trade for Jimmy Butler just before the February deadline. Even despite the 4-for-1 trade for Butler, Golden State still have 11 players who warrant rotation minutes and who've played significant roles over recent weeks. An 11-man rotation simply can't continue as the urgency increases to close the regular season and into the playoffs, with early signs already of who may feel the squeeze going forward. Veteran center Kevin Looney has easily averaged the least minutes of the 11 players since the All-Star break, which included playing just over 6 in Tuesday's win over the Bucks. The 3x champion has already seen a few DNPs earlier in the season, and could add to those as an obvious candidate to have his minutes axed. The major question is whether Kerr can get away with benching both Looney and Tracy Jackson-Davis, leaving the center minutes down to rookie big man Quinton Post and otherwise going small with Draymond Green. Perhaps if Green starts and closes halves, and Post fills some minutes in between, then Golden State can get away with removing Looney from the rotation entirely. Another fan favorite, Gue Santos, could also feel the pressure despite some excellent recent form in his second season. With Brandon Podziemski, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody and Post all young players with little to no playoff experience, does Kerr really want a 5th young player in the rotation come the postseason? Unlikely. Kuminga's return from a 31-game absence was always going to impact Santos' minutes, with the Brazilian forward playing just over 8 minutes in Tuesday's game against the Bucks. Some may lament that given how impactful Santos has been to winning over recent weeks, but the upside of Kuminga has to be persisted with if the Warriors wish to sustain a deep playoff run. Removing Looney and Santos from the rotation may seem harsh, but it's probably necessary as Golden State look to solidify roles and all beyond the Warriors have a Jonathan Kuminga problem that could get very awkward. JK needs to figure it out. Jonathan Kuminga had it rolling in his return to the Golden State Warriors on Thursday night, pouring in 18 points in only 20 minutes during a dominant blowout victory over the Sacramento Kings. Yet Kuminga has found it far more difficult in the 3 games since, showcasing much of the rustiness that was initially expected following a lengthy 31-game absence due to a severe ankle sprain. The Jonathan Kuminga situation could get awkward during the postseason. Tuesday's performance against the Milwaukee Bucks was particularly disappointing for Kuminga, even despite Golden State's impressive 104-93 victory. The young forward was aggressive but inefficient in his 27 minutes off the bench, regularly failing to capitalize on opportunities at the rim as he finished with 10 points on 2 of 10 shooting from the floor. Kuminga also had 2 turnovers and was a team worst -11, with the 22-year-old not re-entering the game over the final 4 minutes. The frustration was palpable for the former 7th overall pick, who committed a flagrant 1 foul late in the third quarter, and might have been fortunate that it wasn't anything more. Even following the win, Kuminga's performance was still a huge talking point among fans and analysts. That's only been exacerbated by the fact the Warriors are set to have full availability on Thursday against the Toronto Raptors, meaning it's well and truly time for the rotation to be tightened ahead of the postseason. Golden State are going to reach a very awkward situation if we reach the postseason and Kuminga is simply a bit-part player off the bench. This is someone many envision averaging over 30 minutes per game, developing into a star, and subsequently earning a $30+ million per year deal as a restricted free agent. Kuminga most certainly believes that of himself, and therefore how he balances his individual aspirations with that of the team is going to be an ongoing storyline. Needless to say that it's practically impossible to see the Warriors giving Kuminga the sort of deal he wants unless he's playing a major role in the playoffs. It could certainly emanate into an unwanted distraction to a Golden State team that's otherwise firing on all cylinders right now. Despite all the criticism, it's fair to acknowledge that Kuminga does deserve some time to reintegrate and find full fitness before sweeping statements are made. Tuesday's performance was certainly disappointing, but it shouldn't be totally unexpected after such a long absence. Warriors make Stephen Curry injury call as informed guard faces fresh issue. Steph is back. The Golden State Warriors will be strengthened by the return of superstar guard Stephen Curry when they close out their 7-game homestand against the Toronto Raptors on Thursday night. Curry missed Tuesday's game against the Milwaukee Bucks on the second night of a back-to-back, with fellow veterans Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green leading the Warriors to an important 104-93 victory. Stephen Curry will return for the Warriors to face the Raptors. The 2x MVP appeared fatigued during Monday's shock loss to the shorthanded Denver Nuggets, having shot just 6 of 21 from the floor while also crucially committing 7 turnovers as Golden State suffered only their second defeat since the All-Star break. Head coach Steve Kerr confirmed to 95.7 The Game's Willard and Dibs on Wednesday that Curry would return, stating that the 37-year-old looked great after watching on from the sidelines on Tuesday. Curry's return means that Kerr could have his full rotation available for the first time since the blockbuster trade for Jimmy Butler in early February. That will be determined on the fitness of Gary Payton too, though, with the informed guard now dealing with knee soreness after recently missing a game due to a nasal fracture. Payton has arguably been in his best form since returning to Golden State over 2 years ago, having scored double digits in 6 games since the All-Star break while shooting a much-improved 46.9% from three-point range during that span. The starting lineup and rotation remains a fascinating story for the Warriors over the remainder of the season, particularly after Brandon Podziemski was incredibly impressive in his return from a 5-game absence on Tuesday. The Raptors will have a host of players on the sidelines, headlined by mid-season trade acquisition Brandon Ingram, former 3rd overall pick R.J. Barrett, and young guard Grady Dick. Toronto are a lowly 11th in the Eastern Conference with a 24-45 record, but did recently win 6 of 7 games prior to back-to-back losses to the Portland Trail Blazers and Phoenix Suns.